We've gotten through the re-sign period. We've gotten through the free agency period. We've gotten through the NFL draft. The NFL offseason is just about over. Teams are set. Rosters are filled for the most part. So now it's time to take a deeper dive and really look at what everyone's done this offseason. So I'm going to be going division by division and covering who left the team, who came in, who did they draft, did these teams improve, did they not improve. Then we're going to give a complete grade on the entire offseason, free agency and NFL draft included. And finally give some power rankings for each division within the division at the end of the video. So stick around for that. The division that we'll be covering today is the AFC West. You know it. I know it. We both know it. I'm a Chargers fan, and it's going to be fun to look at our opponents this year and how they've improved or not improved throughout the offseason. And I'm excited to get into it. But first, hit that intro.
I gave you fair warning, beware. Smack him in the mouth.
Toward the end zone, it is up for the touchdown.
I gave you fair warning, beware.
I'll smack him in the mouth.
What is up, everyone? I am Mike, and I am on the mic of the most electrifying sports YouTube channel in the game today. I hope everyone's having a great day and having a great NFL offseason for your individual and prospective teams. I'm excited to get into this and talk about the AFC West teams and how they did. But before we do that, I need your help. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. We're a little bit more than halfway there, so it helps me out a ton. If you tap the subscription button and the little notification bell right next to it so you're alerted every time I drop a new video, and you're helping me accomplish my dream. Our goal is to do this on a more full-time basis one day, and you are the only person, everyone at home, are the only people that can help me get to those dreams and those goals and those aspirations. Also, leave in the comments which division you want to see me do next, and the division that is recommended or commented the most will be featured in the next video. So please drop a comment which division you want to see me cover next. We start off with the AFC West or the Chargers for any of these series that we do, and then it kind of unfolds from there based on who you guys vote for. Thank you. Business is done. Let's get into the video. AFC West offseason grades and power rankings. So, after the conclusion of the 2020 NFL season, the power rankings for the AFC West would go like this. We got the Chiefs at number 1, who went to the Super Bowl, so rightfully so, they deserve to be number 1 in these power rankings. At 2, I actually have the Denver Broncos. A little bit of a shocker. They came in last in the division last year. But when healthy, and you look at this roster and how good that they actually can be, I think this is the second best overall team, as people like to say, in the division. At the conclusion of last year, I just want to point that out. Not right this second. We're going to give our power ranks now after the offseason at the end of the video. So even though they finished 5-11, I think fully healthy, this was the second best team in the division last year. They shouldn't even won 5 games with how many injuries they actually suffered. Then I had the Raiders at 3 at the end of the season last year. They were competing for a wild card spot, and we'll see if this offseason improved them enough to take that leap into that wild card picture and make the playoffs. Finished 8-8, finished second in the division, beat the Chiefs once last year. Things are looking up for the Las Vegas Raiders as of the end of last season, but I got some words for y'all coming up here in a couple of minutes. And then at 4, I had my Los Angeles Chargers and your Los Angeles Chargers to conclude the 2020 season, simply because our offensive line was one of the worst in the league. Our defense was one of the worst in the league, especially because of the injuries. Our coaching, decisions being made, was one of the worst in the league. We're going to see if the Chargers addressed all these problems and holes this offseason, because they got a phenomenal quarterback in Justin Herbert, and call me biased, but this man is a baller. So anyways, there's the power rankings for the 2020 season. Let's see after the offseason if this changes. I have a feeling it will. We're going to start off with the Kansas City Chiefs. Going to go piece by piece, departures, acquisitions, the NFL draft, trades, and all of the above. Starting with guys they lost. They lost guys like Eric Fisher, Mitchell Schwartz, longtime starters on the offensive line for Kansas City, and longtime very good players on the offensive line for Kansas City. Both of them left in the offseason. Then you also lose one of your running backs, Damian Williams. Sammy Watkins. We're kind of just going over the notable departures. I know there was more, but it'd be a long list for each team if we didn't just look at the important ones. You lose another running back in Le'Veon Bell to free agency. Alex Okafor left. He's a defensive end, one of their primary pass rushers. And Osemele, no one knows what's going to happen with him. Another offensive lineman gone for the Chiefs. So after checking out who departed the team and what the team needed, you saw in the Super Bowl the offensive line struggled a lot, so obviously offensive line was the biggest need for the Chiefs going into this offseason. They could also use some help at the cornerback position. They don't have a clear-cut cornerback one to pair with Tyrann Mathieu up top in that secondary, so you'd like to see them look for a cornerback this offseason. Edge rusher is another thing that they could use on the defensive side of the ball. How much is the money spend limited to pick up some of these free agent edge rushers because there were some available? Then I noted that they could use defensive tackle also to pair with Chris Jones, but that's not a super need. And then I put depth down as another need for them just because if guys go down like they did at the end of the season last year in the playoffs, they don't want to be screwed come Super Bowl time because this is still a Super Bowl contending team. So here's some free agent acquisitions. They actually signed Joe Thuney, an inside offensive lineman, one of the better in the game, who was in New England last year. Paid big money for him, but it's worth it if he's going to give you big production. You pick up Darrell Williams, bring him back. He's a running back, so that fills kind of the hole that they lost with Damian Williams. Taco Charlton's brought in, so he's going to help out with the edge a little bit. Kyle Long coming in on a one-year deal. Another push towards this offensive line. The Chiefs trying to basically switch out their entire O-line this offseason. And then they also signed Jarrett McKinnon, which no one's talking about because McKinnon's been injured most of his career. But if he can get healthy and get on the field, he's going to help them out a ton. And as far as trades, the Chiefs obviously traded for Orlando Brown, losing their 31st overall pick. But I think it's well worth it because when you see what they did in the draft here in a minute, you're going to be like, damn, they didn't have a first-round pick and they got this? Yeah, I was pretty upset about it too in the moment. You can go check out the WARZONE Sports Network live reactions. Not happy with the Chiefs getting steals in the second and third rounds of the draft this year. Now let's go and talk about the draft. They helped out their linebacking core with the draft pick of Nick Bolton in the second round. And then with their second round pick, they turned around and got Creed Humphrey late in the draft for where I expected this guy to go. He is a starting caliber center ready to come into this team and improve their offensive line. So now they've gotten Kyle Long, Creed Humphrey, Orlando Brown, and Joe Thuney in the same offseason. Give me a break. Oh, also, Trey Smith, a guy that's going to help them out a ton with depth and could start in the league him damn self. Probably going to be a backup to start off. Got him late in the draft as well. No big deal. Just threw that little cherry on top to ruin my draft day. So not only did they get Orlando Brown out of the 31st pick, they also get Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith towards that offensive line. And Nick Bolton, who kind of fits in this defense perfect, is exactly what they need. He's a thumper, he's athletic, and he's going to make plays in the ball. This is an opportunistic defense, bend don't break. He is the perfect guy to put in the middle. I wear this for skits sometimes. I figured it'd be fitting to wear it when I praise the Kansas City Chiefs year in and year out and what they do in the offseason. They fixed the offensive line. The offensive line went from maybe a bottom 10 offensive line to a top 10 offensive line with top 5 potential, depending how guys like Creed Humphrey pan out. Nick Bolton, like I said, a perfect fit for them, and they got him in the second round. Didn't even need to use that first-round pick that they traded for Orlando Brown Jr., a Pro Bowl offensive lineman. I will say the one knock, they didn't add too much to the secondary this offseason. They could have added a little bit more. There's still time for them to add a little bit more, but that's going to keep them out of an A or an A+ for me, and I'm going to give them an A- this free agency. If they added an edge rusher and added a cornerback of some value, of some more value than they added, then I think I would probably give the Chiefs an A+ for this offseason. An A+ to a team that has gone to back-to-back Super Bowls. Let's move on to the team that I had ranked second in the AFC West at the close of the 2020 season, the Denver Broncos, who were very busy this offseason. Looking at the departures, they lost longtime starter Phillip Lindsay. He's a Texan now. See how he does there. They lost both tackles DeMar Dotson and Jawan James. Elijah Wilkerson was the depth guy, probably the next guy up after those two. Lost him as well. They decided to cut ties with Jarrell Casey to save some cap room. Jeremiah Tachu is on his way out. So was Will Parks, the safety. And Will Parks isn't the best safety in the world, but he definitely helps out a ton. He's an experienced guy. Kind of reminds me of a Sendejo type of player for him. Sendejo and Harrison Smith obviously did good work together in Minnesota, and Willie Parks and Justin Simmons both did very good work in Denver. His time in Denver is done. And then they lost A.J. Boye, one of their starting cornerbacks last year. So the weaknesses that I would say that the Denver Broncos needed to address in the 2021 offseason, and the biggest thing they needed to address was quarterback. And obviously, you guys already know the spoilers to this. They didn't really do that too well. And then I added safety in there because they did lose Will Parks. I added cornerback in there because they did lose AJ Boye. I think they would have been fine without adding too many cornerbacks, but you know what they did, and we're going to go over that in a second. Another need that just opened up because Philip Lindsay's out the door was running back. I'm the biggest Melvin Gordon hater in the world. I think Melvin Gordon's probably going to have, 1,100 yards. 6 touchdowns. He's going to put up some RB1 numbers, but he's not going to be an elite running back next year, and he still needed that RB1 at the beginning of this offseason. And they also put down they needed to add a tackle. They just lost too many tackles to not bring in a tackle from somewhere this offseason. And the final thing I put down here was linebacker. I love Alexander Johnson. I think he'd be a perfect linebacker too to pair with a really good linebacker in the NFL. See if the Broncos did anything about that this offseason. So here's some of the notable free agency signings. They addressed the cornerback position, and they addressed it in full. And when I say in full, I mean they picked up Ronald Darby, guy who was helping out that Washington football team defense be one of the better defenses in the league last year. And they picked up Kyle Fuller, who has been the cornerback one of one of the best defenses in the league for the last couple years in Chicago. They grabbed running back Mike Boone out of the Vikings. He's not really going to do much, a depth guy, but bringing in a running back, so I decided to go ahead and put it down here. And then, of course, they acquired via trade quarterback Teddy Bridgewater. Not sure if Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater is going to start. It seems they're bringing in competition for Drew Lock to try and hopefully step up his game, step up his development a little bit more. But don't be surprised if Teddy just outright wins that job this year and he's the starting quarterback of the Denver Broncos. Teddy's been through worse and survived worse in his NFL career. Now, speaking of the quarterback situation, I don't think Teddy Bridgewater fixes your quarterback situation. There's obviously heavy rumors, Denver Broncos linked to being involved in acquiring Aaron Rodgers this offseason. If they pick up Aaron Rodgers, for one, as a Chargers fan, I'm just going to be absolutely pissed because it's Peyton Manning all over again. For two, that changes my grade, that changes my power rankings, that changes everything completely that I'm talking about today. So, keep that in the back of your head that if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Broncos, they will have had probably a perfect offseason damn near. Because that was their biggest need going into this offseason, the QB1, the guy that's going to take over, the guy that's going to go into this young and up-and-coming roster and make them exactly what they can be and get the full potential out of the roster. But I swear, if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Denver... Looking at the draft, they had the 9th overall pick, and this is why I'm also a little worried about the Aaron Rodgers thing, because they had Justin Fields and Mac Jones on the board. They decided to take cornerback Patrick Surtain. That pick was kind of confusing to me, because they just picked up 2 corners in the offseason. They still have a guy in Bryce Callahan who can definitely be a solid slot corner, and is going to be one of the better slot corners in the league for them next year. They got Ojemudia. I hope I pronounced that right. I've been practicing on his name for a while. A guy who showed some flashes. Yes, he needed some work. He needed to hone his game, but one day I think that guy could be a solid cornerback too for a team in the NFL, whether it's the Broncos or not. I know you're keeping in mind that you got Kyle Fuller on a 1-year deal, but I think we're looking at probably trying to extend him at his age and everything and what this secondary is shaping out to be. So I don't understand the Patrick Surtain pick here unless he's a part of a trade package to pick up that bad man who I'm a big fan of until June 2nd when he becomes a Denver Bronco. Then in round 2, they got Javonte Williams. I loved the pick of Javonte Williams in round 2. I just don't know if I fully believe in trading up for a running back. It was a big need for them, though. Melvin Gordon isn't going to be able to carry a load on his own. He hasn't in his career yet, so I wouldn't trust him to do it now. It's not like he entered the league yesterday at this point. Bold prediction, I think Javonte Williams will be the RB1 on this team by week 6. By week 6, Javonte Williams will be getting more carries per game than Melvin Gordon. Mark my words, give that man number 25 right now. Then late in the draft, they got one of my favorite guys, interior offensive lineman Quinn Miners. Dude was knocking over trees and stuff in his hype video, bench pressing 2x4s. You just gotta love it. You just gotta love it. A guy that's that ballsy to send in that tape and say, here's my draft profile. And then they addressed the safety position in this draft too. They got Caden Stearns and Jamar Johnson. So whether either one of those guys work out, they're probably going to be playing opposite of Justin Simmons and filling in that Willie Park spot once Kareem Jackson leaves the team or retires at some point. He's getting up there in years. I think he still has some quality play left in him, probably this year for sure. We'll see how it goes as years go on. I'm pretty sure he's on a 1-year deal. So for the overall grade for the Denver Broncos for this offseason, I will give them props. They addressed a bunch of their small issues. They addressed the cornerback position. They've got a ton of depth there now. They helped out the safeties with losing Will Parks. They filled in with the 2 rookie safety picks. They put some more running backs in that running back room with Mike Boone and Javonte Williams in the 2nd round. Didn't really add too much offensive linemen, but adding Miners puts a little bit of depth on this roster. We'll see if he's any good when he gets to the league, as good as his hype video showed he is. You were really praying that Juwan James and Bowles were both going to be able to stay healthy going into the 2021 season. Not the case for James. Bowles looked like he's ready to go, though, so I'm not going to give him too much flack on not picking up a tackle. I would have liked to see them pick up a pure tackle, whether it was free agency, which they still can, or it was the NFL draft. But like I said, they addressed all these small things, and I'll give them praise for that, but they did not address the biggest problem with the Denver Broncos going into this offseason, and that was the quarterback position. I watched a lot of film on Drew Lock because I supported him in the last offseason, and I wanted to be sure that I was right in supporting him because he wasn't playing too well this season. Did some more digging, and he just looked sloppy at times. Super inconsistent, and unless some things really change, I don't think Drew Lock's going to be a long-term starter in the NFL. You got to be looking for a quarterback right now. And with everything that was available this offseason, the fact they didn't grab anybody, other than the obvious Teddy Bridgewater trade, Teddy Bridgewater's not the answer either. That's going to bring their grade down to a B. A solid B, and I'm pretty comfortable with a B. Because the team definitely improved, especially depth-wise, but they just didn't quite get that franchise quarterback, or they didn't get a guy that's going to come in and be a star starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos in 2021 and 2022. So really, the roster and the talent that you have on the roster, you're not going to get the full potential out of it. You're not going to get the full benefit out of it until you find that guy. And just please, just don't be Aaron Rodgers. Anyone else. Just, I can't do this again. I already did this with Peyton Manning. Sorry. I'm calm now. I'm ready to go to the Raiders. Let's go on to the Raiders. Oh yeah, let's get to the Raiders. That was tough to say. Are you guys ready for the departures from the Las Vegas Raiders this offseason? It's a list. I'm telling you, and if you're a Chargers, Chiefs, or Broncos fan, you like to hear it. They lost running back Devontae Booker, a guy who took a lot of load off of Josh Jacobs last year. They lost both Nelson Aguilar and Tyrell Williams, probably the 2 best receivers on this team. Tyrell Williams hasn't been healthy the last couple of years, but when healthy, he definitely was a guy that Derek Carr could go to. And Nelson Aguilar needs no introduction. He's been on a couple teams now, and on every team seems to be consistently a decent wide receiver. Wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. Okay, look at this. They lost Trent Brown via trade. They lost Sam Young. They lost center Rodney Hudson, also via trade. Gabe Jackson was traded to the Seattle Seahawks. That's an entire starting quality offensive line right there. Gone. Off the books. Same offseason. Now, these guys were getting up there in years. At a certain point, you were going to move on from these guys in the near future. But you don't do it all in one offseason. You definitely do not do it all in one offseason unless you have a very big plan to replace these guys. Let's see what the Raiders did in the offseason to replace him. But first, we got to continue going over the departures. They lost defensive end McKinley. They lost defensive end Arden Key, both guys that contributed to the defense. Linebacker Vic Beasley. Linebacker Raekwon McMillan, a guy I thought they were going to bring back. Safety Jeff Heath and LaMarcus Joyner, a guy they brought in last year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14 guys that left that potentially could have been starters on this team when healthy. So looking at their weaknesses after those departures, they need an entirely new offensive line. They've always needed wide receiver. They've needed wide receiver for like the last 5 seasons. I think that they could benefit from picking up one of the big free agents. We'll see if they did that. I mean, I'm sure you know the spoilers to this. They could always use a cornerback. This secondary has been one of the worst ones, especially in coverage over the last couple of years. Abrams being their star player, not the best coverage safety. Put down edge rusher. They got Max Crosby. You need a guy to go opposite. Defensive tackle, safety, linebacker. I basically am saying that the Raiders need an entirely new offensive line this offseason and almost an entirely new defense this offseason. Just an interesting plan by Mike Mayock to try and improve this team. 3 years into the John Gruden regime, completely rebuilding the whole team in one offseason. They did get busy in the free agency signings. They picked up wide receivers John Brown and Willie Snead. I will say those guys may be slight upgrades from Tyrell Williams and Nelson Aguilar. Really close, though. Going to be similar quality, similar production from both of those guys to on the field. Both guys also injury-prone guys, just like Aguilar and Tyrell Williams were, who just left. My favorite signing for the Raiders, I will give them some praise for getting Nick Ngakoue. He's a perfect guy to go opposite of Max Crosby off the edge. Mad Max has developed into one of the better and more underrated pass rushers in the league right now, so get him a guy to take some pressure off in Ngakoue. I like that pickup. They're taking a shot on Solomon Thomas. He's looking like he was a bust, but hey, maybe a new face in a new place can wake this guy up and become the monster we all thought he was going to be. They got Kenyon Drake, which was an upgrade from Devontae Booker in my opinion, so we'll give them a good on that too. Nice little check there, solve the running back problem. Backup running back really, Josh Jacobs. Still should carry most of the load in Las Vegas. And you're bringing former Raider Carl Joseph back to probably fill that safety role that was left by Jeff Heath and LaMarcus Joyner, who's kind of a hybrid corner safety at this point, leaving the team. Now, they did re-sign Nicholas Morrow, a guy that I do like, so that helps out the linebacker core after losing 2 linebackers to departures. Jonathan Hankins sticking around, so that helps out with defensive tackle position. And then both offensive tackle Denzel Good and guard Richie Incognito were re-signed and are coming back to the team to help out this offensive line. So, we got 2 of the 5 offensive linemen filled. And then, of course, you got Colton Miller, who isn't going to be moving anytime soon. So now they just got to find 2 offensive linemen that are starting caliber, and one being a center. As far as the draft, everyone said, Raiders, what the heck are you doing with the Alex Leatherwood pick? Not that they didn't need a tackle. They did need a tackle. Darrisaw's on the board there. Tevin Jenkins is on the board there. Both guys that are highly prospected, highly expected to be better than Alex Leatherwood in the league. But who knows? Maybe they know something about Alex Leatherwood that we don't. But even if you do know something about the guy that we don't, he was going to go in the 2nd or 3rd round. You could have taken someone to help out this defense if you knew you could get Leatherwood in the 2nd or 3rd round. They had 2 3rd-round picks and a 2nd-round pick coming up after this. So I think they would have been better off getting a guy like Jalen Phillips or getting a guy like Kwity Paye there to fill that edge rusher hole that they have. Go with Ngakoue, go with Crosby, and boom. Your D-line is going to be pretty solid. Your D-line is going to be much improved from previous seasons, and you can still get Alex Leatherwood in the 2nd round or 3rd round. You can still get Trayvon Moehrig. We didn't know at the time when they made the pick that Moehrig was going to be available in the 2nd round, but that's who they get in the 2nd round. You still could get him, and this defense and offense is just a little bit better because you just were smart about your draft strategy. Mike Mayock, what are you doing? My buddy Joe Morley was very upset at this pick, especially live when it took place. He's cooled off. I think he's okay with it now because he knows how much they needed an offensive lineman, and rightfully so they did. So that fills another hole. Alex Leatherwood may have to start day 1. So they better hope that they landed this pick and this reach. And another pickup I liked in the draft, Divine Diablo, linebacker / safety, could even probably play a little bit of corner. Versatile guy. Helps out this defense depth-wise, and he's a guy that can plug and play in multiple positions and really do it all as a corner / linebacker / safety. He's just kind of a jack-of-all-trades kind of guy. So let's talk about the overall offseason grade. Here's my problem with what the Raiders did this offseason. They let a ton go, a ton departures, and didn't really bring in much to replace it. Like, it seems like everything they brought in was equal or less than what they lost in free agency or via trades. The O-line, for example, you had multiple Pro Bowlers on this O-line. It's been one of the better O-lines over the last couple years in football. And like I said, you do want to move on from these guys eventually as they age. But do you want to do it all in one offseason? No, because now you got to throw guys like Alex Leatherwood into the fire. Now you got to throw guys like Denzel Good into the fire. The only guy that's proven on that offensive line to be great, in my opinion, is Colton Miller, and he's the only guy that I have 100% confidence is going to come out and be great. You can say Richie Incognito, he isn't the best guard in the league. He isn't the worst. He's just probably just an above-average guard, but as he ages, is he going to be able to keep up even that above-average level of play? Still to be told, still to be seen. Basically, they shipped off their starting offensive line, promoted a few backups, reached on a rookie at 17th overall, and said, okay, this line's going to be as good as the last line. Not going to happen. Their line's going to be worse. This is a team that really thrives on that play action when Josh Jacobs can get the ball going down the field at a high rate and a high yards per carry. So see how that plays out. Defensively, again, I don't think they really improved drastically. You didn't bring in a cornerback 1. They did get Casey Hayward, which I forgot to note. That happened later on after I took these notes. But he's not a cornerback 1 in the league anymore. And really, was he ever a cornerback 1 other than his one great season where he led the league in interceptions? And if you go back and look at those interceptions, big Casey Hayward fan, I got a jersey in the closet. But even that year where he led the league in interceptions, a little bit lucky. Tip balls, fluky plays, bounce to him, and he got it. Never has the top end speed to really lock down wide receiver 1s. And as he's aged, that's kind of gotten a little bit worse for him. He's going to bring the experience to the young secondary because I like guys like Trayvon Mullen. I like guys like Damian Arnett. I think one of those two guys is going to be a CB1, in your future, but right this second, there is not a true CB1 on the roster, and they did not pick one up. Morig is going to start as a true rookie. They better hope he pays off. He slid for a reason, so I'm a little bit down on him from where I was before the NFL draft, but if he is what we all thought he was before the NFL draft, maybe he comes in and starts and is really good as a rookie, but my bet would be that he's going to take a couple years to develop, and in year 2 and 3, you're going to see what this kid really can do. So for 2021, who's filling that free safety role, one of the more important positions on your defense? Ngakoue adds to the pass rush, but it doesn't solve the pass rush issues that the Raiders have had on the defensive side of the ball. Like I said, I like Mad Max a ton. He's not he's like Rich Incognito. He's not the best. He's not the worst. He's above average. And when he plays at a high level, he can sneak into that really good tier of defensive line play. But bringing in Ngakoue did not fix the pass rush issues because he didn't really bring in too many linebackers. Ngakoue isn't a guy that's piled up the sacks over the last couple of years single-handedly. You just don't really have an elite pass rusher on this D-line like you see in Los Angeles, Joey Bosa, in Kansas City with a guy like Chris Jones, and in Denver with guys like Bradley Chubb and Von Miller paired up together. So there's my reasoning, Raider Nation. Before you go ahead and start leaving those hate comments, because I know it's coming, I'm giving the Raiders a D+ for this offseason grade. It's not an F, and it's not going to go lower than a D+, simply because they did bring guys in to fill the roles of needs that they had this offseason. But I feel like the guys that they brought in were lesser than most of the guys that they lost this offseason. There wasn't much improvement from this Raiders team. You're not going to get a grade above a C from me when I don't see improvement from your team. The Raiders offseason looked like an offseason of a Jacksonville Jaguars or a New York Jets or a team that's trying to bring in a bunch of young guys to develop over the next couple of years. The Raiders were in wild card competition last year. You want to make the playoffs? You want to use Derek Carr while you got him? This is another team that's been in the Aaron Rodgers talks. I think Denver's a lot more likely, so that could change a lot. But if you're Aaron Rodgers and you're looking at what they did this offseason, it looks like a Packers offseason to me. I don't want to go to Las Vegas. So D+, I wanted to give you a D and a D-. I was nice and gave you guys that plus because you did bring in some young guys that can develop and fill these holes, but it's going to take a couple years. As far as improving for the 2021 season, Raiders didn't really do much. If anything, I think they got worse based off of what happened with the offensive line outhaul. Could be wrong. I could be wrong, Raiders fans. Go ahead, leave the hate comments because I am a Raider hater according to all of y'all. I could be wrong. We'll say that. All right, let's move on to your Los Angeles Chargers and my Los Angeles Chargers.
Thunderbolts and lightning will light up the sky. Yeah, yeah.
Looking at the notable departures, the Chargers have a healthy list themselves. Hunter Henry, big part of this offense over the last couple years, gone. Tyrod Taylor's gone. He was backup quarterback last year after the punctured lung incident and Justin Herbert incident. He left the team. Now we really look at our offensive line because the Chargers' offensive line was awful last year. Unlike the Raiders and the Broncos, where there were decent offensive lines that were just ravished with injuries, the Chargers' offensive line had its starters and was awful. The only guy that really didn't play that much was Trey Turner. Brian Bulaga also was banged up, but when he got out there, he just wasn't what he was in Green Bay. Let's hope that he gets healthy and is better next season. So Sam Tevi, Forrest Lamp, Dan Feeney, Mike Pouncey retired. The entire offensive line left this offseason, but we only can go up from here because we go from probably the second or third worst offensive line to whatever we're going to be next year. Let's take a deep dive of what the Chargers did to address the offensive line. They did a great job, and we're going to talk about that in specifics here in a minute. Now you flip to the defensive side of the ball, you lose longtime starter in Melvin Ingram, a guy that they still could bring back this offseason. He has not signed with anyone, but for now he's a departure. The edge position, a little bit of a question mark for the Chargers. Other than Bosa, obviously. I should say the other edge position opposite of Bosa, a little bit questionable for the Chargers. Denzel Perryman left in free agency. See ya, buddy. Wasn't his biggest fan in the world, to be honest. And then we lost cornerback Casey Hayward, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, and safety Rayshawn Jenkins, a guy who I was a fan of. So after the departures, looking at some weaknesses the Chargers probably really need to focus on addressing this 2021 offseason was going to be, first of all, getting an entire offensive line from somewhere. Cornerback, now that Casey Hayward regressed and has moved on, we don't really have a clear cornerback one. I assume it's going to be CHJ and Chris Harris Jr., but Chris Harris Jr. isn't the guy that's going to be able to do it all by himself. So cornerback is the number 2 need for the Chargers here, and both offensive line and cornerback were big needs for the Chargers heading into the offseason. Not just small things, they needed to pick up guys. Edge rusher, they got a guy in Uchenna Nwosu who they've been developing behind Melvin Ingram. Will this be his breakout year? Still to be told. I like what he's shown. He's shown flashes of being really good. Made some big plays and big moments over the last couple of years. But Melvin Ingram has some big shoes to fill. He's been a Charger for a very long time and has put together a bunch of good years and has really been the perfect 2 to Joey Bosa's 1 on the defensive line. Tight end became a need when Hunter Henry left, but because of the style of offense that I saw the Chargers go with last year and how I think they're going to change a little bit this year, I don't think tight end was that big of a deal, that they could make it work with Donald Parham, but I still put tight end down here just because I feel like they need someone that can help block and that can help out in the red zone even just a little bit more. Safety became a need, losing Rayshawn Jenkins. Nasir Adderley's probably going to be the guy there. He's been a guy they've been developing as well, has been hurt his first couple of years in the league. We'll see if he can step up. That's another big question mark in the secondary right now. Let's see if the Chargers brought anyone in as well. And then running back, kinda. I just want to note it, that we do need a second running back that can help take some of the pressure off of Austin Eckler. I've always said that Austin Eckler does best when he has a guy that can push the ball in between the tackles, when he's paired with a thumper like we had in Melvin Gordon a couple of years ago. That's when Austin Eckler's at his best. Because then he can come in and be a change of pace guy, and they're not ready for what Austin Eckler's skill set brings to the field. Just a guy that we can put in when we're going to run the power formation, we're going to run the ball on first down, or when we need a yard on 3rd and 1. Joshua Kelly's there. He had fumble problems and made a lot of rookie mistakes last year. Is he the answer to that question? I don't know. Kellen Ballage came in at the end of last season and really showed what a run game can do for this Chargers offense, and they went off and they won the last 4 games of the year right after picking up Kellen Ballage. Whether that's correlated or not, who knows? But I love seeing Austin Eckler have that guy that can be that power back to pair with. Okay, let's look at the Chargers free agency acquisitions. Immediately, they went into addressing the offensive line. They picked up Corey Linsley. So you go from the worst-ranked center in the NFL to the best-ranked center in the NFL this offseason. That was the best move of the entire offseason across the NFL, in my opinion. And then they got some guys that are a little bit underrated. They picked up Matt Feiler from the Pittsburgh Steelers, been a part of their offensive line for the last couple of years. And he's a guy that can play guard and tackle, probably going to play tackle for us. But he's a solid starter in the NFL. He's not a Pro Bowler, he's not an all-pro guy, but he's a solid starter. And with a center like Linsley, the entire offensive line play goes up. Maybe this guy sneaks into the Pro Bowl conversation with guys like Bulaga and Lindsey on the line next to him. But for sure, a solid start. And then they got Ode Ibushi. A little less high on Ibushi than I am Feiler, but again, just another guy that's going to come in and start and be better than who we had last year at guard. And then they addressed the tight end position. They did exactly what I wanted them to do. They picked up a blocking guy in Steven Anderson, and they picked up a big red zone guy in Jared Cook just to fill that hole that Hunter Henry left when he went to New England. Those guys are going to do it perfectly, pair with Donald Parham, and we're about to talk about Trey McKitty here in a minute. Now I want to point out the Chargers did a very good job at re-signing Michael Davis for a reasonable price. I believe he's only hitting the cap by $6 or $7 million for the next couple of years with the contract they signed him to, and I think he's a solid cornerback 2 in the league right now. We needed to keep him around because if he left, then we were in real trouble at the cornerback position, losing Casey Hayward and him, 2 starters in the same offseason at that position group. So keeping Michael Davis around, he can learn a little bit more from CHJ and hopefully continue to improve. This dude has improved each offseason. Looking at the NFL draft, there was some notable draft additions. The Chargers had a very good draft in 2021. They kind of were getting known for having really good drafts. They picked up a guy at 13 in Rashawn Slater who's going to come in and start immediately, which completes the entire rebuild of the offensive line. You got your center in Corey Linsley. You got your guards in Ibushi and Matt Feiler, both solid starters in the league. You got a guy that can be a generational talent up there with Sewell in this draft on a lot of people's boards at 1 tackle, and you got a proven all-pro Pro Bowler in Brian Bulaga when healthy at the other tackle. I think that this offensive line went from a bottom 3 offensive line to a top 10 offensive line in one offseason. And as they kind of get together, they work together, they get the chemistry together, this offensive line could sneak into the top 5. But I'm not ready to say that yet. If they would have picked up an elite guard like Thuney or someone that was available this offseason, traded for Gabe Jackson, I'm not saying Gabe Jackson's elite, but I'm saying a guy with a little bit more value than Feiler or Ibushi, I would be very confident in putting this offensive line into the top 5 conversation. Which is amazing and shocking to me, because as a Chargers fan, I've dealt with bad offensive lines since the Nick Hardwick days. Then in round 2, they committed robbery for a second time in one draft, and they got Asante Samuel Jr. midway through the second round. A guy who can come in and probably be a CB1 right now on the team. We're not going to ask him to. We're going to have Chris Harris Jr. probably take those duties, or possibly a Richard Sherman signing. Chargers fans, what you think? Leave a comment for me on that one. But Asante Samuel potentially could be one of the better slot corners in a couple years in the NFL. Very good pick by Tom Telesco, and the fact that they had the choice between Asante Samuel and JOK in that position was absolutely ridiculous, and either pick would have been perfect, but I love the Asante Samuel pick. If you want to see my live reaction, it's over on the WARZONE Sports Network right now. And then a sneaky pick, they got Mark Webb in the 7th round. We need some help at safety. Nasir Adderley's probably going to start, but having Mark Webb as a backup plan or as a guy that's going to develop in case Adderley doesn't work out, I like it. I like it a lot. So, the biggest need for the Chargers was offensive line. They addressed that, and they fixed that perfectly. They put a lot of money, time, effort, draft picks into this offensive line, and I really think that they're going to protect Herbert well this offseason. It's crazy when you look at Cincinnati and what they're doing for Burrow and his offensive line versus what they did for Herbert this offseason. Polar opposite. Like I said, this offensive line is probably going to be a top 10 offensive line next year. I would be absolutely shocked if they're not top 12. They address the tight end position. I don't think we're going to miss a beat from Hunter Henry to the combination of Jared Cook, Parham Jr., Trey McKitty, and Steven Anderson. By the way, I didn't go into Trey McKitty. I want to do it real quick. The guy shows promise on film when he gets the ball into his hands. Needs some help with the route running and everything, but Jared Cook probably can help him out with that during training camp and everything. I think this guy has some potential to be good for the Chargers. He's exactly what Justin Herbert likes to throw to. Reminds me of Donald Parham a lot. Now, 100%, we could have used more help on the defensive side of the ball, but with the head coaching change to Brandon Staley, a guy who's been a defensive guru since he's entered the league, really since he's entered coaching at the college level and NFL level, he's turned defenses from bad into top 5, top 3, even number 1 overall defenses as recent as last year with the LA Rams. The talent is still there, and guys like Derwin James, and guys like Joey Bosa, and guys like Kenneth Murray. So I think that Brandon Staley is going to elevate everyone's play, and the defense is going to be fine. But I will say the one knock is they did not find that clear-cut cornerback 1 this offseason. Very important to Brandon Staley's defense last year with Jalen Ramsey. There's guys out there that were available that they could have gone after, weren't able to acquire one really throughout the process of the offseason. Like I said, I wouldn't mind seeing a Richard Sherman come in. Not that Richard Sherman's going to come in and be a lockdown corner, but bring his leadership and bring his experience into this defense that's trying to turn over from last year's defense to this year's defense, which I'm sure is going to be very different from Cover 3 Gus Bradley to Brandon Staley, who put on one of the most advanced and best defenses in the league last year. So because of that, and because they didn't add an edge rusher to replace Melvin Ingram yet, I'm going to go A-. If they find an edge rusher, say they bring Melvin Ingram back, and say they bring in Richard Sherman, or they trade for a corner that's contract a little bit too big for another team to handle, because the Chargers do have a good cap situation after all this still, then I'm willing to move this to an A+. Very confidently, by the way. That's going to do it. That's my review from every team's offseason and the grade. Let's look at what the power rankings look like now. Now, I want to point out that I didn't pull these records out of my butt. I actually sat down and looked at every single schedule for all 4 teams and predicted what I think is going to happen throughout the season. No one's perfect. No one gets it exactly on the dot, but I actually sat down and looked at every single game, which games I think the Chiefs could potentially lose, which games do I think that the Broncos could potentially pull off. I did it for all 4 teams in the division, so these records aren't just like, oh, the Chiefs are good, we're going to make them 15-2. No, I don't do that on this channel. Please drop the subscription and notification bell for the little bit of extra effort. But anyways, I do have the Chiefs at 15-2 and finishing atop the division. Again, they're just too damn good. They fixed the offensive line and probably made it 10 times better than what it's been in previous years. Chiefs are scary again, and Super Bowl contenders once again, unfortunately. I'm still wearing my Chargers hat, but I had the Chargers at number 2 at 11-6. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. The Chargers improved this offseason drastically, especially in the offensive line. Justin Herbert lit it up last year with the second least amount of time to throw the ball, I think, on average of the entire league. Imagine what he can do with some time. This offense is built to be as good as the Kansas City Chiefs offense this year. We don't really have a clear-cut speedster. We'll see if Guyton continues to overperform like he did last year. Then on the defensive side of the ball, there were some question marks left for the Chargers, which is why I don't have them being a 12, 13, 14 win team. They didn't really add a cornerback one this offseason. They didn't really add a safety to replace Rayshon Jenkins or an edge rusher to replace Melvin Ingram. But I will say this, with Brandon Staley coming in instead of Anthony Lynn, you're going to see improvement from everyone on the defense just because that guy seems to be a defensive genius. He's been very successful in previous years, and not just like, oh, he just came in and made the defense good. No, he comes in and make defenses top 3, top 5, top 1 in the NFL as recently as last year with the LA Rams. So I expect to see some guys overperform because Staley is at the head of the Chargers defense going into next year. The only thing I really think could derail the Chargers season and keep them out of the playoffs next year is if Justin Herbert has a serious sophomore slump, which I'm not going to say is out of the question. It's a new coach, a new offense, a new team entirely, but he's thrown to a lot of the same guys in Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. It shouldn't be too rough on Herbert to learn, especially a guy who has been known for his intelligence and his football IQ. So I'm not super concerned about it, but I could see it happening. That's the one thing that could derail the Chargers this season. Then at 3, we had the Denver Broncos. It's a team I think did improve, so I do have them winning a few more games than they did last year. I think this would be around what their record would have been if they were healthy. If not, maybe even another win or 2. I love what the Broncos did to improve depth and improve the team overall as a whole. The quarterback position, still a huge question mark. If they get Aaron Rodgers, you might as well just throw this whole video in the trash. Just throw it in the trash. I'll delete it off YouTube. We won't even have to worry about any of this because everything changes. With Aaron Rodgers, they're probably the best team in the division. They're going to be right there with the Kansas City Chiefs if they do get that bad man in Denver. But like I said, don't. Please, you ruined my life. I already went through this with Peyton Manning. Please just don't do it. Just don't. I don't want Aaron Rodgers in the division with Patrick Mahomes and Derek Carr already here that we have to compete with. No, just don't. And we got the Raiders at the bottom. If anything is going to cheer me up from Aaron Rodgers going to Denver, it's going to be seeing the Raiders have a bad year. No offense, Raiders fans, and I know you guys are going to hate this video, and you're going to leave a lot of hateful comments in the comment section below. I don't think your team improved. I think they got worse, and I think everyone else in the division got better, which is why I got you guys dropping a few more games than last year. So there it is. AFC West offseason grades and power rankings. Really just a full review of the offseason for the AFC West from me to you. Thanks for tuning in. If you made it this far in the video, you obviously enjoyed what you saw. Before you go, please tap that subscription button and a little notification bell right next to it so that way you're alerted every time I drop a new video. Drop a comment which division you want to see next. Like I said, I'm going to go through all the comments and count up the votes, and that's going to determine which division I do an entire offseason review of in the next video. So please drop those comments below. I'll even be replying to all of them. It's always a good time to talk in the comments section. And then if you want more from me, I'm Mike on the Mic Sports on all platforms across the board: TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everything. And I'm a co-founder of the WARZONE Sports Network on YouTube. Type in WARZONE Sports Network on YouTube. Hit subscribe over there. You will not regret it. We have now 7 weekly shows. So there is sports airing on the network every day. We have a great group of guys over there. We're at like 8 or 9 people now, and we're all working towards the same goal. And we're covering all sports: UFC, NBA, NFL, MLB, everything in between. You won't regret it. WARZONE Sports Network on YouTube. Link will be in the description. You can also just search for it. Is that all the plugs for the episode? Yeah, I think so. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you. Smash that like button. Helps us a ton in the algorithm. I'm Mike, and I am on the mic. And this is me saying, until next time. If the fucking Broncos get Aaron Rodgers, I'm just gonna cry. Tears are coming.